So I brought an extra.
Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 334, part 2. Beyond the BS. We are keeping it fresh tonight with Tyler Jones.
Keeping it fresh.
Mike Dieter as well, still in the garage. Nate Hale. I'm Steve Crane. We have some audience members as well. I think Hector is actually going to be joining us back on for this one here, too.
I think so.
I think so. We'll find out. But if you guys are just tuning in, hopefully the ones that were watching part 1, you can find this feed. We're trying this. We're going to separate the podcast going forward. So I shared it to the Bourbon and BS community page, which I encourage you guys all to join, and also to my personal one. And I encourage you guys to share, like,
this beautiful
comment.
Monte Cristo ashtray. Shout out to
Altadis USA. Speaking of Altadis USA, let's shout out to our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton, Columbus, Ohio. They carry a lot of Espinosa cigars, including soon the featured cigar earlier on part 1, which was the Warhead Independence Day.
Yes, sir.
As well as a plethora of Espinosa cigars.
Especially new ones coming out.
All the new ones.
All the new ones.
All the new ones.
Every single one of them.
We got coming in the Warhead Independence Day, Warhead 11, Warhead 1, Warhead 6, the Knuckle Sandwich Puro, and the Knuckle Sandwich Chef Special.
Look at you.
Yeah.
It's like you've done this before.
Did my homework.
Did your
got
homework.
a decent supply of Espinosa.
We got a little bit. We got a
Is
little
where
bit
Nate's at as well. Absolutely.
Of course. They're a
Carrying
partner of
Espinosa.
Espinosa as well.
I don't
Also-
have enough space to carry the whole line.
I mean, if you just dedicated that cabinet, we
You know what
probably
you
could
should
make it
do?
work. But, there's
Like,
other good brands out there that you
Instead of putting,
can't be too greedy.
you got to like, because the bombs, like the actual bomb, you got to like put some string on to hang them down. Like people can buy them like right from hanging off the ceilings.
It's kind of like yank them down.
Yeah, just have them like put them on like a hook or something. Make them look like they're falling down.
Make a pinata.
Bombs away.
Got it.
Bombs away in the
Hit
bourbon.
it
realm.
hard enough, 10 cigars fall out.
So you saw it.
No,
how,
no, don't do
like,
that.
with your hands. Like how big are these?
Probably about that size.
About this size right here.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet, bro. You're gonna see them all. You can see them all over the place. So
Yeah, very, very cool marketing on that for you guys.
thank you.
It'd be
Thank
the
you.
Warheads
We're really
this year.
happy with the way they turned out. And then
That was-
Like there was
like
such,
Hector was saying, that bomb display was perfect. I
Yeah.
mean, we fit all of them in there. Up top, we had Warhead Independence Day with the red, white, and blue flag looking like box. That's gonna be just a normal 10-count traditional box that we usually put Warhead in, just
Mhm.
special
Yeah.
design on it. And then you got the actual bomb shaped
that's so,
reciprocals that hold 10 of each of the.
Receptacles.
Yes. Is that what I now said?
You said reciprocal.
That's the same thing.
They also, it's a lot of give and take
A
there.
lot of give and take.
Yeah, sure.
For sure.
Reciprocal. Spell no.
The
Can you
war,
use it
when
in
you
a
use it in a sentence.
No, Tyler cannot use it in a sentence because it doesn't make any
Because
sense.
it doesn't make sense.
I also want to thank Altadis USA. Normally in the second part, we do an Altadis cigar.
Correct.
Monte Cristo, Romeo, H. Upman, Aging Room, several other brands from them. But tonight we're going to be smoking for part 2 the Espinosa. This is Murcielago Chicaca. What a wonderful name.
Yeah, I mean, this is a cool
TAA 2024 exclusive.
Correct.
Thanks to
Number
Mike Dieter for bringing these.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Mike, for bringing these on my end. This is a nice, pleasant surprise. I haven't smoked this in a little bit because they're hard to find now because they're made in limited fashion and a lot of them sold out really quick. So, and shout out to our PA retailers that supported us with this project and stuff like that. So, looking forward to what's coming up this year for that project. And yeah, hopefully it's going to be another banger like this. And
Can we talk about how we smoke these out of order, or no? We'll just pass.
Well,
it
we mean
Yeah,
out
what do you mean out of
I-
order? A little bit.
I got to tell you what, though, Hector, lighting this up, there's still a shit ton of flavor on it. So
well,
that's-
you're going to get spice on this one, which you
Yeah.
which you didn't
Oh,
get
yeah.
on the first one, but yeah.
the retro hail is yet to come to me after that first one, though.
No, I think it's ironic, though, because when I was in Kentucky last week, I went to the shop I always go to, and I picked one of these up.
Shout out to
And-
Schwab's.
Yep, and in Lexington. And I got home Monday and sat out on the patio, relaxed, and this is the first cigar I smoked. And then Mike messages me. He's like, "Oh, I'm bringing that on Wednesday." I was like, "All right."
No, Hector, I actually kind of wanted us to smoke this second because I just wanted to prove a point about how good this cigar is, and that it even smoking something like Warhead first, this thing still holds up after you smoke that because of the amount of flavor and the amount of good tobacco we used in it, or that you used to blend it. And yeah, I think it holds its own even after that little bit more powerful Warhead blend.
Absolutely.
Hector,
Okay.
you need to win the award for Master Blender of all time.
No,
Just saying.
listen, there are a lot of good guys out there. There are a lot of great cigar blenders out there who've been doing this their whole lives. You know, we've just I like to say that we're very fortunate. We've made the right cigars, put it in the right people's hands, and gotten the right response. I mean, that's pretty much it.
You guys
I mean-
definitely do not sacrifice quality at all. You guys are
Oh,
all
we
for
try
it.
not to. I mean, it's a very competitive business. That's Steve. How many people are? There's only so much space. There's only so much humidor space. And we're
Well,
all,
and you said it earlier, and I mean, let's kind of start with this. So, the topic tonight for part two, and I haven't shared it to all the cigar and bourbon groups for part two. I want to keep it just see what we have this time doing it this way. I shared it on my personal. I encourage you guys to do the same.
I
if you
did
guys
as
are
well.
interested in doing that. I did the Bourbon and BS community page. But I mean, keeping it fresh, you know, we'll keep it on kind of topic with the industry and then kind of see where the conversation goes from there, because that's what part two is all about. But I mean, you had kind of gotten into it a little bit, Hector, you know, as far as the competitive side of this market as far as the industry of cigars. The what's new type of a customer is great. It's great to have, right? You know, you want to have that on the bourbon side as well. The what's new, what's exclusive, what's tough to find. I mean, those are drivers for any industry, especially when it comes to consumables like cigars and also whiskey and other spirits. But you know, there is a balance there of what you're doing there, right? I mean, it's like you got to keep it fresh. Sometimes, you know, the tried and true is really what pays the bills. But I mean, as far as what you guys are going through, what I wanted to ask you, Hector, we'll keep it on cigars for now, like I said, but I know a lot of people listen to part two for other reasons. But when it comes to cigars, when you guys teamed up with AJ Fernandez, and I don't know exactly when it was, because like I said, I was down at your guys' place, I think it was 2015 or so.
Yeah.
And you had the Laranja, the Caixa was the one that was coming out, the kind of one-off of the original Laranja, now referred to as the Laranja Reserva. Everything else, I think, at that point was coming out of La Zona. I don't think even the 601s were coming out of AJ yet.
No, they weren't.
That's got to be something where when you have the opportunity to use just the pure depth of AJ Fernandez tobacco and manufacturing capabilities. I mean, what did that open up for you guys?
Well, listen, and Eric said this many times on podcasts and anytime the question is brought up, it was cheaper for us to go to have AJ make the cigar than us to try to find the wrapper that we needed, especially broadleaf. I mean, just our factory connections just couldn't get the right cigar. They couldn't get the right tobacco, I'm sorry, to make the cigar that we wanted to make. Murcielago and 601 moving over to AJ was just because of the quality of the wrapper that we were getting. The Murcielagos that were made at La Zona were the wrapper was a little more rustic. The blend was a little stronger, a little sharper. The tobacco wasn't the same quality. It was still good tobacco, but it wasn't the tobacco that AJ uses, which is just a little more refined, a little more aged. It just hit the point. So once that relationship started, you could, if you look at the timeline, you can see that that's where we started to venture into other. We started to use other wrappers. The Oscuro came out with the Matafina cigar. Matafina, we would have never been able to get Matafina. AJ had Matafina. So we did the dark Sumatra that we use on the Maduro for knuckle sandwich, and that we use the little lighter shade for the Azulejo. Those are things that the La Zona just couldn't acquire, and couldn't keep. So going with AJ was just it was just a good move. It was a good business move for us, and it's opened a lot of things. I mean, listen, we did a Cameroon cigar out of La Zona when we did Warzone with General. So it's not like La Zona is only Habano in Connecticut, but we had to do what was best for the company, and it's worked out. I mean, it really has worked out. Having a guy like AJ in your corner, you can't really go wrong, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, that's got to be important to you. I mean, when it comes from a business standpoint, broadening your resources is sometimes scary, I think. I mean, for you guys, obviously, it's you were priding yourself on at that point. Now, shoot, you said 13 years. So you were only 3-4 years really into doing the Espinosa cigars when we were down there. And it was something that it was a very, again, family oriented feel when we were down there. It was very cool to see that. And when you were kept, turning around at your desk and you were pulling stuff out of your humidor when we were trying to blend the BS Silver, you had a lot of stuff going on, right? I mean, you're like, all right, don't smoke this. And then it kind of got fun where it was like, all right, smoke this, don't smoke this one. And I mean, it was just back to back to back to back. And it was a lot of fun to do that. But I felt looking back now on that experience, it was, I don't want to say you guys were feeling the pressure, but it was something that you had talked about. You had to basically go through the steps of dissecting the old EO brands, because that's what Eric was involved in the first place. And those were manufactured at another factory. We don't have to go into that exactly where it was, but not necessarily, he didn't have access to the blends based on the business arrangement prior to.
We never got the full blends. But what we did was we retro engineered that. We sat with another guy who has another factory, who worked for him at one point, who kind of remembered the blends. So it was a matter of going back in time, what tobacco was available to that manufacturer during that time frame before he blew up, and we kind of hit it on the head. And then the taking it over to AJ, we kind of fine-tuned it, because we did the same thing with AJ. I mean, I took the cigars to him. I said, this is what he goes, well, what's the blend? It's this and this and this. Well, all right. We sat and this and this and this. There are guys, I don't remember. I can't recall what the original EO Murciélagos tastes like, because that's 15, 17 years ago.
Right.
That's a long time. I mean, we sacrificed many of them, opening them up, trying, all right, what's this? This looks like this looks like that. But we were very successful in doing that. And it's been a hit. Listen, Murciélago has done very well since the move. The 601 Blue is just, I mean, I don't even know how to describe that cigar. That cigar has been, it's gone through so much in its history, and yet it's still one of our, biggest sellers. It's a cigar that a lot of new guys have gotten into, and a lot of the old timers, guys who've been smoking 15, 20 years, remember that cigar from its rating in Cigar Aficionado in 2000, I want to say 2009. So that's how that worked out for us. Now, oh shit, everything turned off here. My automatic timer went off. Hold on a second.
We can still hear you.
Yeah, but
we can still see you just fine.
Don't you want to see my pretty mug? There you go.
They do on the feed. I don't know about us.
Yeah, and I lost my baseball game. All right, there we go. So, now we're not in that position anymore.
Cubs lost. Don't worry about it.
Oh, I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about the Mets. I'm worried about the Mets.
You should be worried about the Cubs this year, by the way.
Well, we'll see. We play them the 9th. We get them May 9th.
Love it.
So, now we're not going back in time. We're not trying to replicate any cigars. We're just, everything now is new. And, we have the option of using these two factories, and they're both different, and they're both distinct. And listen, you as a guy who blends cigars, you couldn't be happier to have those options.
And I mean, like going back to when we transitioned to AJ for some of the blends, I mean, that's been huge for our growth as a company, because AJ's been able to keep up with production for our stuff to help us, fulfill these, increases of how much popular some of these brands have gotten, and how much more production we've been making of these brands and stuff like that over the years, probably.
Yes. This is true, sir. You are correct, sir.
Perfect. I had a feeling.
Trying to send this to someone asking about the feed. I'll put this as far as the keep it fresh thing. What I kind of put on here, and this is for you guys. And Hector, we've talked, I think, in the past. It's been a long time since, the first time you were on the show, but life is about keeping things fresh, or as they say, variety is the spice of life. How to keep things fresh, or do you not even try? This is something that when I first met you, you were still working full time for the police department, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And your past, you have a military background. And now at your age right now, and we don't have to say what it is, but now you're in your fourth career.
So, well, actually, yeah, third career.
And
yeah.
I mean, it's just like, that's kind of what I thought of when I'm thinking about, like, what should we talk about in part 2 tonight, is that with you staying on, I appreciate you doing that, because I know it can be a long podcast, but it's something that you've been through a lot of different careers, a lot of different experiences. And now that you're at this point, I mean, just kind of, I guess, share to everyone out there listening to what you feel comfortable with of the different stages of your career and your life and everything like that, and how it's kind of kept the excitement for where you're at right now.
Well, listen, I joined the Army at 17, almost 18. I was almost 18 when I joined the Army. And I joined the Army because, I'm an American. I was born in this country, and I have a strong nationalist streak that, that runs, goes through my parents as well. My parents were Cubans. They were immigrants that came to this country. And unlike a lot of the ones who have come in the last 40 years, my parents came right at the beginning of the revolution. They came hoping to return to Cuba, not looking to never go back. As that didn't work out, and I remember telling my parents, listen, I'm going to join the Army. I'm 17 and a half. I don't want to work in a supermarket the rest of my life. I want to go and see the world a little bit and do my duty. And my parents gave me no grief about it. My dad was very proud that I did that. Then I came back from the military, and you come back. All guys who are veterans come back with a certain mindset. We like things to be squared away. We like organization. We believe in hierarchy. We believe in chain of command. So the next natural step was to go into law enforcement. I mean, really, there really was no other option. And while I waited, when I got out of the Army, I had a chance to go work at a couple of different agencies. Georgia State Patrol was hiring, but I didn't want to. I wanted to come back home. I mean, I had been gone for 3 years. I had been in Korea for a year and a half, and I miss home. I miss being in Miami. Now, of course, I would give Miami away in a minute. I'm so over Miami. I'm so over Miami and what it's become in the last. Let's see, when did I came out? I came out in '86, late '86. Yeah, what it's become in the last 40 years. You can have it. But that probably has a lot to do with the fact that I'm almost 60 now, and I've slowed down. So joining the police department, to join the Miami-Dade Police Department was a great thing for me. It's one of the largest police departments in the country. I was very good at what I did. I was on the intel side, and I worked there for 32 years. And it was only around the year 22 that I met Eric, and he asked me to come on board. And I had never really worked in the private sector, and there was clashes. There were personal clashes, because it's not only is it the private sector, it's a family business, and it's a completely different, it's sales. It's we're selling cigars. It's not a serious, it's not a serious thing. It's not police work. And I had a bit of a problem with that for some years. I wanted work to run like the police department, and that was not, in some instances, yes, in organization and checks and balances, that's something that always was going to be something that would work out for me, having that experience in law enforcement. But I've also learned in the last probably 6 or 7 years, I've kind of cooled off a little bit. I was a hothead. The first couple of years, I was a hothead. I'd get angry for everything. Anything would piss me off. You know, if the shipment was a day late, and if the guy told me, you know, if they said they were going to send this and they forgot it, I would get angry. But then I just learned that's just the nature of the beast in this industry. It's not just us. Everybody has the same problems. I mean, you know, the growing pains of working with factories that English is not their main language, Spanish is their primary language, and even though I'm a Spanish speaker, the cement, you know, it's not the same. You know, our Spanish and their Spanish, there are time glitches. there are some black holes in us communicating amongst ourselves. And Eric came into my office several times and said, "Bro, you got to relax. You're going to have a heart attack. You got to relax. You're going to have a heart attack." And I've relaxed a little bit. I don't get as angry as I used to get because we're still going to get it done. It just, you know, it won't be in the time that we, you know, instead of this month, it'll be next month. And I've noticed that, you know, this is an industry where manufacturers and retailers have been doing this. If they've been around for years, they've experienced this. This is not new. And COVID came. And then when COVID came, I made the decision to leave early. I mean, I was already in something called deferred retirement. So I was already retired, and I could have stayed another 5 years, but I really wanted, you know, I really kind of saw the writing on the wall that, you know, Espinosa was going to take off. We were going to take off. I felt it in my bones, you know, going to all the early shows. I was just having this conversation with Jack a couple of days ago. Before Jack joined us 6 years ago, I remember the first 2 years of the show, we'd walk through the halls of the PCA or the IPCPR back then, and nobody knew who the hell we were. And now we walk the show floor, and everybody knows who we are. And people, you know, I have friends in the industry and guys who are, you know, are in the same position as me, who are, I consider good friends, and I can tell you how good of friends they are during this time that I've been out. These are the guys who have called me. I mean, brand owners, guys who are way more seated in this community than I am, calling to see how I'm doing and checking up on me, and that really touched me, you know. And that just shows how we've grown and the impact that we've had in this industry. And you know, I don't regret leaving early. I wish I was younger and I could give this industry and this company 10 more years, you know. But you know, things worked out the way they have, and it's been good, and I'm happy, and I'm happy that we've achieved this. I mean, we started with an 800 square foot warehouse, and we had no product, none. And we were the first show that we went to. We were like, man, is anybody going to find us way in the back here in Orlando? But they came, you know, and the cigars got better. And not only did the cigars get better, you know, our social media presence got better, and our fan base grew. And then we had people who, you know, one of the most humbling moments was going to a show or going to an event, and a guy says, "Can I get a picture with you?" What the hell you want a picture with me for? Don't you have any fat uncles already? You know, but you know, and they love us, you know, and it's, you know, what we've grown there is such a grassroots thing. And you know, when we, you know, just 5 years ago, we didn't have a single in-house rep. We have 5 of them now. You know, we have 5 in-house reps, and you know, we cover most of the country with the exception of the Badlands. I think we have somebody everywhere. And our brand, you know, our brand is not just internet famous. It's internet popular. We're a well-established brand. We're no longer a boutique brand. We're one of the bigger boutiques, I guess, if you still want to use the word boutiques.
Right.
But we've come a long way, man. We've come a really long way, and you can tell the work. And you know, I could sit here and tell you the stories, and all you got to do is look at the pictures of us 10 years ago when we may not have had hair, but our hair was dark, you know, and there was no gray in our
beard is what I call that.
Our beard was all gray, and we're beat to hell. We're beat down. But listen, I had a guy who worked with me last year. He tells me away with 300,000. You know, you could have walked away with a little more cash. I said, listen, man, I'm making cigars. I go to work in shorts. You know, I don't think I'm having that. I don't think I'm having a hard time. I think I'm doing okay, and I stand by that. I think I made the right call, and I'm happy where I'm at. You know.
Let's actually pivot that off of, and let's take a different perspective of that, because I think, again, you're talking about, I know, people might be listening to this and it's like, this is more cigar talk, but I mean, you're talking about a lot of different, stages in your life and where you're at right now. And I love the mentality you have right now of, with that, the way you finished it of, you're enjoying this, and I did hear you say, you wish you had 10 more years in you. I think you do. I mean, what else are you going to do, right?
Well, but I mean, I'm 58 years old. I mean, listen, there are guys who live this their whole life.
Right.
I mean, yeah, and listen, and who knows? I might just live this. I might work till I'm 80 years old. But I do have a family, and I know that they my daughters are 24 now, and my son's 38. He's a police sergeant now. He's carrying on it's not my department anymore. It's his department. I went to a cigar event 3 years ago. I went to a cigar event, and I remember I was still on the department. No, I'm sorry. 5 years ago, I went to a cigar event. I was still on the department. I took my son, and I go, and I would tell her, I would introduce my son. This is my son, Hector. Oh, hey, how you doing? He works in Kendall. Oh, okay, great. I went to one 3 years ago, right? A couple of years after COVID, and it was no longer me introducing him. It's like, oh, this is my dad. He used to work in the department. It's
cool
his
transition, isn't it?
Yeah, complete transition.
But I want to pivot that off of, staying with you on this is transitioning over to Tyler. Again, military background.
Right.
I think there's a lot of parallels here, but obviously at the, earlier stages in life for Tyler,
for sure.
But, same kind of, concept to you as well. As, I mean, you tell everyone about, you've said it before years ago on the podcast when you first came on, even before you were with Espinosa Cigars.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, kind of share, your side of things as well. I think there's a lot of parallels there.
Yeah, I mean, I did 4 years in the Air Force right out of high school. I was a cop in the Air Force, so it's law enforcement background between the both of us. And luckily, the Air Force base I was stationed at, Wright-Patterson, it's one of the largest Air Force bases in the United States. And so that means we have a lot of jurisdiction, a lot of area to cover and stuff like that. So I actually had the opportunity to do a lot of law enforcement kind of stuff. I wasn't just a gate guard 24/7 or sitting on a flight line, for a 12-hour shift. I did that, but we actually got to do some law enforcement stuff, which was kind of cool. And just to see how that worked and if I wanted to do that for 20 years and then move on to that career after the Air Force. And luckily, in my 4 years, I figured out that's not what I wanted to do for 20 years. And I can't tell you how many people are like, dude, just do that for 20 years. Then you can get in the cigar business or whatever, and you're still younger and stuff like that. But, that wasn't what I, felt like I wanted to do. And luckily I met people like Eric Espinosa, Jack, Hector before then, and Richie, and then the rest of the guys at the company. And luckily after about 3.5 years, I had that conversation with Jack and Eric, and I was like,
you're a huge Espinosa guy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've been smoking shit.
And people were saying already, I remember when you first came on the podcast, you were still in the Air Force, right? And you were big down at Stogie Smoke Stop at that point, right?
Huber Heights, Ohio.
Huber Heights, Robbie.
Great spot.
But yeah, then people were already, especially, Eric and the guys at Espinosa were already like trying to cherry pick you.
Yeah,
and talk you into it.
Yeah, and they, Eric, when Eric gets credit for this, it's funny every time, we have a trade show, it seems like Jack and Eric at some point go back and forth about who discovered Tyler first and who talked to him first, who first approached him. I
can attest to that. This is true.
Right. So it happened again this year, by the way.
Robbie Graham and Bourbon BS Podcast discovered you first.
That's true.
Is actually where the credit should be.
Right.
Because the first time you were on the podcast, if I recall correctly, you did not bring Espinosa Cigars.
I did not. Actually, I don't. I think I brought a Tennessee Waltz.
No, I think it was the Saints and Sinners.
The bourbon.
Oh, that's right.
The Willet that I brought was the Saints and Sinners bourbon that I got from being the member of the club or whatever.
All right, go ahead.
And then
I can look it up and find
Hector,
out.
even this year, you weren't there, but we were at our team dinner Friday night, And I still, that conversation comes up, and Eric's like, I found him first, and then Jack's like, no,
It's flattering, right?
I don't think they have that fight about Gavin. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
they might not, but but it was funny, and then I got put on the spot, of course, like every year and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, Eric, I did meet Eric first, so there is that. And I met Jack shortly after that. But pretty much when I met Eric and we just established a relationship, he's like, one day you're gonna work for me, kid. And I'm just like, all right, whatever. I didn't think much of it or whatever at the time. But as I started falling in love with the cigar business and the whole industry and the culture behind cigar smokers and stuff, I was like, what, this actually really could be something that I can get into. And all my Air Force leadership, they're trying to talk me into staying on and stuff like that. I'm like, no, I got plans. Like, you have plans? And they're like, well, what are they? And every time I explained it to them, they're like, it actually sounds like you got your shit together, kind of deal. And I'm like, yeah, I actually have a good idea, like what I'm going to do. And they're like,
they sound surprised.
Well,
you had your shit together.
You should see some of the people that come
That's
through.
fair.
You should see some of these people that leave the military. They leave and they have no fucking idea what the hell they're gonna do.
Yeah.
And but they actually were like impressed that I actually had a plan and I had like a job lined up and stuff. So, and it was a no brainer for me to join the Espinosa crew. And August will be 5 years of me being with them.
Jesus.
So that's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah,
At the same time,
you were first on episode 69.
69. What are we at right now?
334.
That was May 2019.
Woo,
And,
look at that.
It was the Willet that
You
you
were
brought.
17 years old.
It was the Willet Rye, but
Right.
we were smoking a Crown Heads.
It was the Tennessee Waltz, right? Yeah, I think it was the
Oh,
Tennessee
wow.
Waltz.
That's a great stick,
Yeah,
though.
confused.
great
That
cigar.
was Tatawahe, but it's fair.
But no, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was fun.
Well, your perspective, and you guys can chime in too, but Tyler, your perspective, that's the biggest thing. Hector, I don't know if you get asked this. I'm going to assume you don't, when a lot of people are going to be like, what's next for you? I think you get asked what's next, that's coming out for, cigar wise, right? You know what I mean?
I thought you meant what's next in my career. Wow, I was going to.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if you get asked.
White sneakers and socks.
I assume you don't get asked what as much anymore because you're established in your third career, right? I mean, it's like you don't necessarily get that question as much as like, what's next for Hector? It's what are you doing next for this? What's next in your family, right? With your kids and all of that stuff. Where I think, as a contrast, with you, Tyler, you get that, what's next type thing. And I think with the topic of keeping it fresh is there's a balance there of what, you're happy with the status quo as far as being comfortable in what you're doing versus, always having this hunger for more, because I think it's a kind of a career and a life dynamic that a lot of times is being presented to you. And it's, I love having you guys both on the show, obviously Mike as well, and Nate as well. But I mean, with you two as the special guests, you've got people in the same industry, different facets of the industry, but it's also the different points in life.
Right.
And I think keeping it fresh is different for everyone. I think there's always, you got to have a perspective on that. But I mean, I'll go to you first, Tyler, on that.
Look, like keeping it fresh is almost like, like a lot of people as a sales rep and stuff like that.
Sales rep, you have to keep it fresh.
Right. You have to
keep
keep it fresh.
You can't just keep walking in there and nothing to report,
you can't
right?
you can't just be, complacent in this business at all. And I mean, one example of it, of like me keeping it fresh was at the beginning of this year, I got Kentucky added my sales territory and the rest of the state of Ohio and actually West Virginia too. So, it's not me leaving this company and going to another company to get a fresh start or whatever. Not that I need one or anything like that. I got no plans of leaving this company. I'll tell you that much. But me being able to get Kentucky added and then the rest of Ohio, that gives me a fresh area to cover and fresh area for me to grow the brand.
New accounts.
And new accounts, new areas, new people to get our product in and the right people to partner with and figure out, who's right to, join the Espinosa family and stuff, retailer wise. And then to continue to grow those relationships and grow the brand with the existing ones in those territories. So, I mean, that was a real nice change of pace for me. And something I was actually been looking forward to a lot, especially with the Critchfields down in an executive and stuff. I've been super happy having them in my territory now, but it's been cool just in a little bit of time in the couple months, we've added new retailers in the Louisville area. We've got some promising people in the Lexington area that we're going to be looking at adding to the Espinosa family retailer wise. And so we've just the automatic, not automatic, but just the natural growth of already that territory, and then Cleveland and then Cincinnati, it's looking promising. And that helps me keep, keeps me on the road more, which that's a balance I got to figure out and stuff like that,
well,
where I don't lose,
right?
Right. Yeah, of course. And I don't want to lose my fucking mind on the road. That's like the last thing they want. And that's the last thing I want. So it's just finding that right balance of being able to, be home and actually be on the road working the brand and stuff. So that's been interesting to try to figure out. Now that the trade shows passed and stuff like that, it'll be a lot easier for me to get on a consistent rotation and stuff like that. When I first took over that expanded territory, it was a little interesting trying to mix them in with already the big territory I had for the most part. So now after the trade show's done, I've got to meet a lot of the people I haven't even met yet at the show, which was awesome. And, we got some orders written up and, talked about a little bit of business and, but just got to know some people a little bit more. And so I'm looking forward to the rest of this year, getting in a rhythm, getting in a mode where I'm, got everything as like a system. And luckily I think I'm going to do really well in that area. So
I think with your job, and this goes to anyone on the table or you, Hector, I mean, it is something that doesn't necessarily have to be a change in your career, but it's real easy. And, again, with three of us being in the cigar and spirit industry, and, Mike, you've got your career. This is more of a
passion,
hobby. It's part of your lifestyle,
Yeah.
right? Personal lifestyle. But I mean, everyone says, that
and
whole
we
thing.
love him for it.
That's right.
100%.
I always joke around, like if I was to ever switch careers, like there's only two industries I want to get into. It's either the wrestling industry or the cigar industry. And there's only one cigar company I would ever want to work for, and that's Espinosa. But I'm not going to compete with you, Tyler.
Yeah, you'd have to move
Yeah.
right now.
You want to go to Arizona?
How
You have to move to those Badlands, as Hector
what do you
called them.
think of the Badlands? How do you feel about the
I mean, hey, if
there's only one
I'm-
shop in Utah, but I heard it's a hell of a shop.
all right, yeah.
I guess my thing is that, we all know that, and again, Hector, I've had 2 careers. You've had, 3 careers, including the military. And it's something that there are those points where, it's really easy to get stagnant in what you're doing. I mean, even if you enjoy it, but if you don't get challenged or you don't get the opportunity to expand, right? Like Tyler, you just had that opportunity recently.
Yeah.
My previous career, it was, every time I was about ready to kind of I was just tired, like I was just bored, right? And it's like I would get a promotion, and then now all of a sudden I had different part of the company that I was working with. Now the last 12 and a half years I've been working for Brian in the Tinder Box, and it's something that I've had to do, I guess, more just based on the scope of that job, which I really love.
Right.
It's challenge myself. It was start a podcast. It was, do certain things on social media. It was doing things to, try to really kind of, I guess, push myself, but then that becomes the everyday norm. You know what I mean? The keeping it fresh thing is always a challenge, I think, for everyone. Even if you love what you do, they say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. But I mean, everything becomes a job at some point.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, like Hector, you're doing this, you know what I mean? Again, for how many years now? It's a grind. It becomes a grind because now you get challenged, but it's about how you, I think, look at that and how you approach that challenge of, all right, now you just released all these things you've been working on for the PCA and all of this year with the releases. And it's kind of like, now I got to do it all over again. And you too, Tyler, I got to walk into these accounts again. Mike, you're a traveling salesman as well, right? I mean, it's something that it's constantly, trying to kind of refresh yourself. Nate, you go into the same place every day and you're selling, spirits, wine, you're selling cigars. And it's just like, everyone's like, oh, that sounds amazing. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. Hector, you're now traveling more, like you mentioned before, obviously where you're at the moment, but you'll get back out on the road. And this industry and the cigar side of it, it's like you're kind of a rock star. You know what I mean? You're the guy. Everyone looks to you. They enjoy the cigars. Man, it must be nice to be able to do that. Man, it's a job. And it's tough to keep it fresh because it is a grind. It wears on you.
When you're sitting at that airport after the 3rd plane delay, and then then your flight gets canceled, and they have to chill at the airport till 6 a.m. coming back from Las Vegas if you're tired of that city. that becomes a job. At that
And
point.
not
It's
even
just
to-
like these fucking-
Not
they're
even
all-
to mention your personal life that you're trying to balance and juggle and keep that fresh, where it's not just you're coming home, you're tired, and that's everyone, not just you guys, but everyone with their job, whether they like what they do or not. Now you got to come home and you want to be able to be yourself for not only you, but anyone that's involved in your personal life. I mean, keeping it fresh is something that is going to be a challenge if you let it build up.
Listen,
Agreed.
I can add on a little bit. Yes, you're right. It's all jobs are grinds. After a time, they're all a grind. But in this industry, if you think about it, this is the only time I've ever worked anywhere where people that would come up to you and go, "Man, this is great. This is great, right?" And you're like, "Of course." You tell them it's great. Of course, they don't need to know that this is the 4th store that you've gone to today. It's, you flew in late. You had a guy in the plane next to you who snored the whole way, or the one guy with the bladder that every 30 minutes he had to pee, or you landed at the airport in Idaho and you had to walk 2 miles to the rental car. I mean, listen, those are all, but you kind of put up with that because at the end of the day, this is still a lot of fun. And yes, all right, we put out everything for this year. Now the chore is, what do we do for next year? But that's still a lot of fun because you're still deciding, you get to create something new for another year. And I think it also helps that you work for a company like the one we work for. Listen, it's a family company. And one thing family companies know is that family is important. Where else, and I'm going to say this, and I know I probably, I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to say this because I truly believe it. Where else could I have worked where, my boss said, just get better and come back to work? That's where else is that going to happen? That wasn't going to happen.
Sadly, it's rare.
Yeah.
It's rare. I mean, I couldn't be luckier to work for this company, so how do you not give everything?
Uh-oh.
Oh, that's such a good point. There he is.
When they've helped you through all of the things that happen in your life. My mother died 2 years ago. I couldn't go to the show. They couldn't have been more sympathetic. My brother died a year and a half before that. They couldn't have been more sympathetic. They understand that family is an issue, and that stuff, life comes up. Life gets in the way of you living, I say all the time. But there's also the benefits of, you get the accolades, and accolades are important. They're important in law enforcement. They're important in the military. You're doing a great job. You don't think anybody notices, and all of a sudden you get an AAM. You get an Army Achievement Medal, or you get a certificate of appreciation. You get something, and we get accolades in this industry too. If it's an attaboy, or a 94, or a cigar of the year, those things keep you going.
Tyler
Because
gets trophies.
Tyler getting cigar, salesman of the year again, but it'll be a while before that happens again, because I think they're going to smoke him this year. I think he's getting smoked this year.
He's got a target on his back.
He's got a target on his back. You ought to see that chat. They're talking big shit in that chat. But
Real
listen,
G's moving sounds like lasagna, bro.
yeah.
Jack actually called me the other day, and he goes, "Man, these guys are getting real chatty at you and stuff like that." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "This time last year, you're real chatty right back at him. What's going on?" And I'm like, "Well, you get older and the age
you're
comes
older.
up, and you start
you're
thinking,
a
like,
wise 27.
Let me take a
Yeah.
step back a little bit.
Fuck outta
That's
here.
where you sit there and you're like, well, yeah, I remember when I was the new guy with a fresh
Right,
territory never
yeah,
been
of
hit.
course.
Yeah, it's easy to get growth from there. It's a
Listen,
little
this-
harder when you've established yourself and you've established relationships and credits. It's like,
Yeah.
you got to work from that. It's like, yeah, new
People
kid on the
read-
block, you got fresh, you got no numbers to compete against. It's like, all right.
Retailers not so much, but consumers, the customers who smoke cigars, when you see them, and when you do events and you run across them and you chit chat, they're like, "Man, that show looked awesome. It looked like you guys were in New Orleans for 3 days, or you guys were in Vegas for 4 days." Yeah. Oh man, that's great. It was great. But we had to set up the booth. We had to, it's 107 degrees in Las Vegas. You can't go outside. A glass of water at the Circle Bar costs $4. You're going over all of these things. but it's good water. But
you're in the desert. I mean,
you're
come
in
on,
the desert,
imported.
of course. But my point is that I think it's all worth it because everybody, the projection is that this is such a great life to live. And while we work it and we come back exhausted from those trips, that flight back from Vegas, it's like Death Valley days. It's like the Dawn of the Dead, people getting off that plane coming back from Vegas to Miami, or that trip that that I take every year that I took with Jack last year. We do the Seattle, we do Washington and Oregon, and you fly back, you come back dead. You fly back from Nicaragua sick every time because every time you come back sick every time, whether it's sniffles or strep throat or whatever. But it's still, at the end of the day, it's the cigar industry. There are a lot worse things than being in the cigar industry.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen.
And Hector,
Or your event that you do, your 10 event. Yeah. All right. We're getting set up, but I got to sit and talk to Christian Aroa for an hour and a half, which I've known Christian for 13 years because Eric worked for him, but I've never talked to him more than 10 minutes. And, you talk to him for an hour and a half, and you talk to, the reps, and the guys from Crown Heads who are next to you, who are like family almost because of the relationship with Jack.
Sure.
And the other reps and guys, that's the greatest part of this. These multi-vendors and these events where all their other manufacturers around, or even when you're doing we're doing our store calls, we'll run across Brent and Manuel, who is the Oliva rep in the Pacific Northwest. And, we sit and talk for an hour. That guy, what a great guy. You don't see these guys all the time, and that's the best part.
Yeah,
it is. It's the best part.
The shared but different perspectives, I think, really help out. Tyler, you see that a lot, obviously.
Yeah, no, I was just doing a multi-vendor event.
I want to say this real quick, Hector. We can hear you just fine, but we froze on a not so flattering screenshot there again. I don't know.
I'll do it again. Hold on. I don't know what.
Do it again. We're gonna continue. I'm gonna go to Hector, or I'm gonna go to Tyler, and.
But yeah, I just did a multi-vendor event down in Louisville, like I said earlier, and it was awesome just because I had like Mike Sourbaugh, General Cigar, to the right of me.
That guy's hilarious. Hilarious.
Sourbaugh's the best. And then I got
Chat your ear off, right?
Oh yeah, it was
Love
great.
Sourbaugh.
And then to the left of me was Ben Pearson from Drew Estate. Then Lee Whitaker with Oliva was on the other side of him, and then Ed Bowles, who used to work for La Flor Dominicana, now he works for Forge. He was on the other side, and we just had a blast the whole day, just BSing, talking shop, talking industry and stuff like that, and just personal stuff. Like, I haven't seen Ed. I've known Ed for years, and I haven't seen him since I started with Espinosa because he ended up going to Forge, and we never shared any territory. So it was actually kind of fun, catching up with him. He's like, son of a bitch, Tyler, we finally got a territory we share, right? And I'm like, yeah, and I'll see you in like 2 weeks when I'm back down in Kentucky over at the my old Kentucky Herf with the guys at Fat Ash Cigars. That's Mother's Day weekend. Yeah, that event is. So I'll see him again down there, and he'll be like, "Well, what's going on the last 2 weeks or whatever?" So it's just fun to catch up with guys and just talk shop and just catch up personally and stuff like that. And it's always that like Hector said, that is like the best part when you get to see everybody. Like PCA, it's great to see the retailers and stuff like that, of course, but like some of the after hour stuff, like we're at Smoke on the Water in New Orleans, a couple blocks off Bourbon Street, but we're up on the rooftop of their place, and we got Brian Motola of Cavaliers Cigars, and then we've got some other industry guys up there, and we're all just shooting the shit, talking shit and stuff like that.
Am I frozen? Am I still frozen?
No, you're good now.
You're good now.
All right. And listen, you know what's a really funny thing? When you do an event and Eric is there, and you don't really have to do anything. You don't have to entertain anything. You don't have to entertain because he's got the room. And you're just sitting there, you're like, wow, and you're hearing the story for like maybe the 18th time, and it's still fantastic.
Oh, 100%.
And people walk up to you and go, bro, how do you work with that guy? Bro, this is, like I said, this is the cigar industry. There are a lot worse things. And I think, and maybe this, and I'm not trying to sound bougie or anything like that. I think your experience depends a lot on who you work for.
100%.
When you work for a good company and you work for a company that's successful, it just seems to be a little easier.
Well, there's excitement there.
And don't think, and we had our hard times. Well, I mean, we earned we paid our dues. We had our hard times. and we've earned everything to get where we are now, and we're not going to ever rest on our laurels, because that's not his MO. That's not his style. But it's so much fun when you go to an event and you watch guys who are not used to being talked to in a certain way, and Eric's just busting on them. He's busted on Nimish. He's just busting on Nimish. So now you lost weight. Now what? You're still ugly. You're still ugly as hell. That kind of stuff. You can't.
Last month at the 10 event, he was busting on Tom Lazuka.
Yeah, he was busting on Lazuka, and then Justin Andrews got a couple shots taken at him. And
Eric Espinosa knows how to keep it fresh.
Yeah, Eric Espinosa knows how to keep it fresh.
Let me include everyone else here, and transition into keeping it fresh. I alluded to it earlier, but how do you keep it fresh with all the things you're talking about? Obviously, us being in the cigar industry, but then with everyone else out there, keeping it fresh with a job. Hopefully you're happy with it. Obviously that's what we're talking about, is you got to find someone that sounds like that, who you enjoy working for, right? I mean, the same thing as any other part of business is that you want to find some happiness. Obviously you got to pay the bills. Those are the first and foremost. You got to pay the bills for you and anyone else that's counting on you. But there's also the point of when you also take that statement into paying the bills for you and everyone else that's counting on you. How do you keep it fresh at the end of the day when you're not working? That's maybe debatably even harder for some people, that you find something you love what you do, then you maybe immerse yourself too much into it, or that's your getting out of the house. I hear that sometimes, sadly, from people that they'd rather be out smoking a cigar, they'd rather be out doing their job, because when they go home, it's not the greatest home life. That's almost the worst. I'd rather hear that you're happy with your home life and you don't necessarily enjoy your job than the opposite, right? I mean, that's just not the right balance. That you'd rather enjoy your home life more, and you're just grinding away at your work. That's something you can change, hopefully, if you put some importance behind it. But it's like for you guys, Hector, Tyler, Mike, Nate, it's that part of it is. For me, it is, and I'm very happy with my life at this point. I've been happy in other stages of my life, with the home life. But right now, that is thankfully like my driving factor, where different parts of my life, when my personal life wasn't in the place it is now, the work was the escape. That's when I was single, and when I was, I don't have any kids. So when I was single, real easy to do a podcast, real easy to go and work in a cigar shop for the last 12 and a half years and really kind of harness that energy to, it's not, first it starts almost as a distraction, I feel like, from certain things in your life, if things aren't good in your personal life. But now it's like things are going well at work. How are things at home? Because I think that's really your home base that needs to be worked on more diligently than again, it's a balance, right? You can't just focus on that and not be happy and you're not performing at work. But say you got the work thing figured out. Now how do we address the home life?
I mean, for me, it's like, last year I picked up golfing, and that's been like
you are getting old.
That's I know, right? Jesus. and so I picked up golfing, and like that's been like my fucking like place I go to get away from the cigar business, between that, country concerts, and then just being around friends that don't have nothing to do with the cigar business or whatever. Or I might smoke cigars with them, but last thing we're talking
You're
about,
the cigar guy, though.
I'm the cigar guy, the guy in the industry and shit. But like, like that part of like just finding those avenues to like just escape for a little bit and not think about the cigar business and just like clear your mind. And, like golf course is perfect. I got music playing. I'm with my best friend outside the cigar business and stuff like that, and we're just hitting golf balls, and then we're hanging out after at his place or my place or whatever, and then his girlfriend comes in, yells at him from golfing again or whatever, and then it's like a whole other.
So that
thing.
He'd be a good one to talk to about this part of the topic.
Yeah, 100%.
Got it. So, do we need to get him on here on a third screen here? Do we need to patch him in here?
I have to patch him.
Hopefully, he's listening tonight to see what you guys have to say about this part of it here.
Yeah. But it's just finding that balance and shit. Like it's tough because you want to, as a salesman, you want to hit your number. That's all you care about at the same time.
Yeah.
But mentally, you have to like find that off switch, because if you don't ever hit that off switch, then you're just like stuck in it. 24/7, and that's what burns people out. And, that's like the last thing I want, especially me, how young I am in this business and how long I want to stay in this business for. I don't want to hit that point where I'm like, fuck this at this point. That's like my number one fear in life is probably like hitting that point to where I've almost hate now what I do. Now, don't get me wrong. Every year I'm in this, there's a little shit that pops up to where I'm like, all right, this fucking thing or what? Like
that's the same.
But that's life. That's life in general. Right?
Yeah, you love.
There's always going to be the bullshit, right?
Becomes a job.
Yeah, that's when it becomes a job, right?
Yeah.
So, but luckily I've figured out a way to keep the balance and stuff like that, keep the performance up, and hopefully I can keep that up without, it deteriorating.
I think sometimes in an industry or a company, they recognize that, right? I mean, you have stages sometimes. They say, traveling sales for what you're doing, and Mike, you're on the road a lot as well. There are stages sometimes. Some people can do it for years. They got a happy family life and all that stuff, but a lot of times it's a younger person's thing where you're not tied to your home life as much, but at a certain point you hope that it would line up within an industry that you love, that you timed out on this part of it, and now it's like you're in the next step of your life where it's like, Hector, you're on the road somewhat, but you're at home. You know what I mean? Most of the time you go to work, you come home, you do all that in your same industry. You hope to see some sort of, you hope that people above you also, and a lot of times the circumstances, is that opportunity there? Because a lot of times that opportunity is not there. Now there's another challenge there. Mike, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just agreeing.
No.
Yeah.
I agree with absolutely everything you guys are saying. I mean, our situations are different, but similar to Tyler, it's like for my job, right? Like I gotta say, I'm very blessed with what I do. Before I took on the job that I had zero experience. I'm in industrial LED lighting, which I knew absolutely zero about when I took on this position, a little over 3 years ago now. Yeah. And it was a big learning curve for me. And I spent most of my career in the health and fitness space. And so that was a big challenge for me. But one thing I'm really, really blessed about is, one, I am not micromanaged whatsoever. And number two, they highly encourage, when your workday is over, do whatever you need to do to recharge and show up as your best self. Like, for example, through the job that I have, it's how I got to meet you guys. Mm-hmm. I mean, Tyler, I met you in Indianapolis, but
right, yeah.
But I'm able to do things like this. I live a pretty mundane life, to be honest. Like, my life consists of my kids, my training, eating, working, and repeat. And there are definitely times, and just like Tyler's territory expanded, my expanded too as well. Mm-hmm. So now I cover a lot more territory now, and part of it's back in my home area where my oldest daughter lives too. So as much as, now I got to travel even more than I'm used to doing, I'm trying to make the best of it. Like, I get to spend more time with her. I get to find more places to train at, because I still compete in wrestling and stuff like that too, to where now I have the ability to find more places and spend more time doing the things I love to do in conjunction with my work. And it's completely encouraged, which has really helped, because if I didn't have that, I don't know, trying to juggle 4 kids, a job that travels 6 different states, like, it's hard to do. It is not easy. And there's definitely times when anyone who's been in sales is, as much as it's hard to be on the road, it's a very emotionally draining sometimes, trying to show up for everybody else. By the time you get home, like, you're just exhausted. So it can be challenging at times.
I've been there.
It can be very challenging, especially when you have kids to raise, or you got to show up as the best version of yourself for them too as well. It's not easy, so being able to, like, at least for my position, like, being able to do things like this tonight. Right. I was thinking, I think this is like my 7th or 8th time on the show now.
Yeah. That's gotta be right. Yeah.
Like, I love looking forward to stuff like this. Like, this is the type of stuff that really makes everything worthwhile. Like, being able to do the things I enjoy doing when I'm away from home really helps keep me recharged and refocused. And it was recently, I really kind of took a step back when it comes to quote unquote, keeping it fresh. I did this not that long ago. I looked back, and the things I was kind of like hoping, praying for, like, back in the day, it's at some point in life, I want to be able to have a good job. Like, I'd love to travel someday for, however it may look. Like, I want to still wrestle. I still want to be in shape, And I look back, I'm like, everything that I've ever asked for, I'm currently living.
Love
And I had
that.
to look back and go,
Love
you know
that.
what? Like, I'm incredibly grateful. As much as it didn't pan out the way I visualized it, when I look at it now, it's like everything I ever wanted is right in front of me already. I'm living it. And I'm trying my best every day to just be grateful for everything that I asked for is now here. And I just try to make the best of it every single day. You know, doing things like being on a podcast with you guys, or, you know, find a cool place to train at, or, you know, and as much as it's traveling, like I get to go back home more often. I get to visit my mom, I visit my daughter, I see friends and family like a lot more now. And it's been a real blessing, you know, but is it easy? No, it's still extremely exhausting.
Yeah.
But I'm blessed to have something that allows me to be able to recharge and not have to worry and have that constant stress of the traditional sales roadman guy, for lack of a better term.
Well, it's just like any other job, especially if you're
Yeah.
traveling, right? If that consumes you and that's what you're doing all the time, I mean, you're not available for you're by proximity, you know, geographically, you're not available for anyone. So that's a different, it compounds, you know what I mean? Like, you know, Hector, you know, you traveled, you said 7 or 8 times, you know, last year before, you know, your car accident. And it's like, there are other people in the industry that they're on the road, like these guys, how many, almost 300 days out of the year.
Dude, it's like
it's
Probably
expansive.
something like that. Yeah.
like
Look,
to put
I mean, I look at Eric. Eric travels a lot.
Right.
Travels a lot. Jack travels a lot.
Yeah.
Richie travels. Richie does Florida now, and he's traveling a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys really travel. I've never really had that issue. I mean, I missed, while I was working in law enforcement, I missed a lot of birthdays and softball games and you know, and that's, so it's, I think it hasn't been the same. It's not at the same level. I'm not missing a lot of things now anymore. But then again,
there's effort there, right? You know, got to put effort in.
But my kids are all grown up now too, so
Yeah.
you know, and I'm really lucky that here at home I've really been I've really been pushed to enjoy this, because this is my last hurrah. There is no career after this. So I mean, this is my last hurrah, and
When you're crushing it too, so that's the reward,
well,
right?
and
you have that support at home, which is always
sure
good.
to get to this level, to get to the level that we've achieved, that, you know, personally, that I've achieved in the short time that I've done it, and in, you know, with not having that typical, you know, Cuban, grew up in a tobacco field, and none of that, you know, I didn't have none of that. So it's, you know, it's I've been lucky. I really have been lucky.
No, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Nate, what do you got, man? You've been quiet over there.
I have.
All I was going to say is that I don't travel for my work. It's just the fact that, you know, working now retail, and even in my last, you know, in the service industry and the moving industry, like the last 12 and a half years, I've worked open to close every Saturday, basically, other than the occasional weekend that I take off, the traditional weekend, right? That's not really easy on a personal level, that when you work from basically 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. every Saturday, that's not great for your social life. A lot of shit happens on Saturdays.
A lot of shit
in the
happens on
mainstream,
Saturdays,
right?
yeah.
You know what I mean? So I mean, like that's how I can relate to that. Is I have a couple of shifts that I get off at, you know, closing, and I'm that day is gone, right? And then we were doing the podcast, you know, every week. That was something that was a lot, where it's like that was something I chose to do, and now all of a sudden I had like a couple like little blips of time off, you know, that worked with a social schedule. But it's again challenging yourself to embrace the time off. Nate, what do you have?
Well, we also have a lot of we have some downtime in this industry too. I mean, the factories close middle of December. You know, we're gone for PCA. You know, they take a lot of holidays in Nicaragua off. So, I mean, there are some days that are, you know, that really, that aren't super busy. I mean, on our side, on the admin side, on the house side, not on the sales side. The sales side, I don't think there are any days off on the sales side. You're pushing to get to that number and to hit all your accounts, because the last thing you want is, you know, Eric or Jack to field the call from a rep from a store who said, "Oh, I haven't seen your rep in a month. You heard from your rep in a month." You don't want that, you know.
No.
So it's you know, we have a little bit of that. We have a little more flexibility on this side, but still, it's a rat race. It is, but it's like I keep saying, we're selling cigars. We're doing, it's not the worst thing in the world. Listen,
Hector,
I've got to roll out. If you guys,
thank you so much. I know you got to go.
I got to go. I got to get some help to get back in the house. So I appreciate you guys having me on. I'll leave
Thank you for choosing us for your first podcast. Since everything.
Well, I appreciate you having Tyler there and Nate and Mike to hook it up. And I will see you hopefully sooner than later, buddy. Thank you for having me.
Cheers,
Thanks,
brother.
Hector.
We'll see you.
All right, guys. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Nate. No, that was great of Hector, real quick. Great of Hector. Thank you, Tyler, for lining that up, man. It's great seeing him. He's been in the garage before, and just doing great work for everything that you guys are doing.
So for me, the idea of keeping it fresh, especially in a career, that's always been kind of a challenge for me. First job I got out of college, doing pharmacology, toxicology research. It was a very boring, mundane job. I was mainly doing it because it was a job, it was a paycheck, allowed me to get my first apartment and car and stuff like that. The biggest thrills I got out of that was learning certain techniques that made me more specialized in our department. Things that I picked up that I was
it's the freezer, don't worry about
okay.
it.
That no, like so there were certain
animal in there.
It's not like a Halloween decoration popping out.
There was a certain
work that's being done real quick.
There was a certain
Just don't talk about it.
Animal technique that there was a couple of them that I developed a great specialization for in my first career. So whenever studies came up that required those, I was the go-to guy. So that made me feel good. Like, oh, here's something that they recognize I'm really good at. So they put me on that particular study for that reason. But like overall, the job just got very boring. I get bored in careers fairly quickly, is what I've realized. The only thing with that one was getting some of those specialized skills. But then after 4 years, I was already looking at what was next.
You outgrew it. You weren't bored. You outgrew it.
I don't want to say I outgrew it, but I don't know if I can say I outgrew it, but I definitely got bored doing what I was doing. I also knew I could do better than what I was doing. And that's what made me leave that career and actually got a job in the cigar industry, being a sales rep like Tyler. And Tyler kind of touched on it. When I was just a cigar smoker and geek, going around, going to events and stuff and meeting some of the sales reps, like I thought sales reps were just the reps were kind of the rock stars of the industry.
Right.
So when I got the opportunity to do that,
not me.
So when I got the opportunity to do that as a career, I was super excited. And I was, traveling all over the Midwest, at 8 states, seeing all these new accounts, all these new people. I absolutely had no idea what I was getting myself into. There was a lot of stuff behind the scenes that I didn't realize that a cigar sales rep had to do. I was probably micromanaged a little bit more than what Tyler is. That was a downside of the company.
From what I've heard, yes, that is probably true.
Other people would attest to it.
Maybe accurate.
But like I had such a passion for that job. The difficult part for me was turning it off. So like even when I came home on the weekends, I had a hard time turning it off. And my wife's sitting back here in the audience, and she's like, I'd leave our apartment Monday morning at 8:00. I'd come home sometime Friday night, and then Saturday, hey, what do you want to do? I want to go hang out at Tinder Box all day.
Yep.
I'm going to take all my cigar stock. I'm going to go hang out at Tinder Box. We're just going to sit around and smoke cigars.
That is a lack of balance that we were referring to here.
Yeah,
I can
trust me. I did that my first 2.5 years where I just lived in a cigar shop, and on my my
you're
weekends
still
off
thinking-
and stuff. And
Yep.
well, there is that, but maybe I wasn't looking for that. But or I
The-
wasn't looking for that
but then
always to be the case. But it's I luckily I found
even-
the balance.
but even when Sean, here, take it. It's your bottle. But like
Pause for a bottle
so
pickup.
even
Thank you, I appreciate that, but I think you're gonna enjoy that more than me.
even when
Hey,
that
John.
career didn't last as long as it did, and I got into my next career, the entry job I got for that company, after a couple months, I got bored with that, and that's fair. No one wants to do door-to-door sales for very residential.
I did it.
Yeah, it sucks.
I
But-
have a different
Um,
perspective
well-
on that.
About to get a no soliciting sign for
Yeah.
this house.
Yep.
This neighborhood is big on that,
And
sadly.
but then I moved
That's
up
right.
in that company. Got an office job with the company. And very quickly in that role, I became one of the go-to people in that role, and so I started taking on, some of the busier reps, the bigger reps, and that was my reputation. Was I was, what was it, 2020? One sales rep that I covered, he and I were responsible for 30% of all the pricing requests the company submitted out of 19 sales reps. We were 30% of them.
Seems good.
I was averaging at one point like 60 to 80 pricing requests a day. And
So are you saying you like
I got-
in the beginning of these steps, you like the whole keeping it fresh thing? You were saying that you were excited, you were involved, and then it faded, or what are you saying?
So-
with
well,
this?
so like with my last career, it was great being kind of the go-to guy, training new people, developing a training manual that hadn't been done before, working for or with the busier salespeople. Like that made me realize I was needed, but that was all my drive was all right, I'm needed. And that was it. And so I would just go in and I knew, all right, here we go for the next 8 hours. I'm not taking a lunch break. I'm at my computer because I'm needed. I'm important to the people that I work with. And
Not enough.
I
for
didn't,
you.
well, I didn't feel like in that role I was ever going to develop any more from that.
Mhm.
So I moved into another role. That role was the exact opposite. I spent, I didn't do anything for my first month.
Mhm.
In fact, my first 6 months in that role, I averaged about 2 hours of work a week.
Sounds terrible.
It sucked. Like at first, I was like, all right, I'm going to sit in front of my computer and then I'm going to look over the TV and watch movies or play video games all day. But even that got boring.
It's not fulfilling, is it?
No. So I went from being someone who was very important to someone who wasn't doing anything and not important at all. And, that sucked for how my work ethic is. And so I quickly was already looking else. Like, I think I was looking elsewhere within a year after that transition.
Good that you acknowledged that at least.
And then come to find out, like after I left that position, it took 3 other people that were doing what I did just to cover the workload that I was doing.
In 2 hours.
No, the role I had before that.
The previous, I got you.
So it took 3 people to be able to cover the workload that I was doing. And so I made a completely different, once again, made a completely different career change to what I do now.
Yeah.
To where I sell wine and liquor all day. But what keeps it fresh for me is the different customer interactions that I have every day.
Sure.
Helping different customers that have different wants or different needs, new products constantly coming in. Most of the days that I'm there, we have sales reps coming in that are bringing samples that they're trying to get us to start carrying.
Get banged up at work helps, There you go.
Sample
There's a
products.
there's a lot
what
of
you were
spitting.
saying, Tyler.
There's a lot of spitting. I'm not sitting there just drinking wine all day.
Weird way to describe it, but
Well, that's how it is. But no, there's
very intimate.
the good thing is because we work with so many distributors, both on wine and the spirit side, we have a lot of reps coming in trying to get us to carry something or do events or try and push their product. So I get to try a lot of new things. Sometimes a sales rep will come in and I might be busy with customers, and then my boss comes over and he's like, "Hey, do you want to try any of these wines?" And I go, "Are you bringing any of them in?" He goes, "I'm bringing this one." I was like, "Okay, I'll try that one. Out of all the 6 wines that rep brought in, let me try the one that you want to carry." So that way I know.
Seems backwards, but yeah, okay.
Well, yeah, I'd been like, "Yeah, line them up, bro. Line them up.
Let's do it.
Well,
Let's figure this out.
Let's talk about it together.
What's that bucket for? I don't need a bucket. Get it away from me.
If I'm there for
Used wine? What is that?
if I'm there from the start when that rep comes in, I'll try the whole lineup with my boss. But if it's after the fact, I'll try whatever we either already carry or what we're going to bring in, because that's going to be the new thing. And
Yeah, you want to be knowledgeable of the product, right?
Yeah. So that way, when a customer comes in and they ask what's new, all right, here's something that we just brought in. So that way I know what all these different products are. I don't necessarily need to know everything in every distributor's portfolio. I need to know what's on our shelves.
Fair point.
But that's always changing. That's always evolving. There's always new items coming in. So
Right.
the idea of keeping it fresh in this industry is the easiest of any industry that I've worked in before.
So transition that to what we were talking about before that,
Which was, you'll have to remind me.
the home life,
So
which you talked about earlier. Now you went into more, which I appreciate. You know, we talked about cigar industry with Tyler and, you know, obviously with Hector as well. But I mean, like with you, through all those transitions.
So thankfully, Jess is also a wine person. So being able to talk wine with her is easy.
It's nice.
But I mean, recently there have been some things on the home life where we've had to make that transition as well, where things felt stale or stagnant and had to have a heart-to-heart conversation about where things were. And come to find out, we were both on the same page, but neither one of us had voiced it before.
So you communicated.
And so once we had that conversation, like, things got drastically better, because
It's a huge step, right? I mean, that's huge.
yeah, after
about it.
Yeah, after 15 years of marriage and being in your 40s, like, all of a sudden you make a change in the home life, and all of a sudden the home life feels better. Now it's one of those where, you kind of alluded to it earlier. You got the people that are so focused on home life or on work,
Mhm.
and they love the work life, and like they go to work to get away from home. I think there's a lot of us that have had that. I know I've had that.
Yeah, a lot of people
before,
do. Yeah, absolutely.
But then it's all right. Now I'm glad I get to go home. It's not necessarily that I dread the work life, but I'm also excited to now go home. So
It's a good feeling, right?
it's a great feeling when you're excited to go to work and you're excited to leave work.
That's the balance.
Yep.
Yeah. I've never been one of those,
I'm in that boat.
oh God, it's Monday.
Good.
I've never been one of those, oh God, it's Monday, thank God it's Friday kind of people. Where
Oh, I'm still 100% that.
Hey.
God, it's almost Friday.
Yeah, he's sitting. What did you say, Nate? Oh, good, it's Monday.
no, oh darn, it's Monday.
Oh.
Thank God it's Friday.
I heard that wrong.
I've never.
Because
I never
there's a lot
thought.
of people out there that they hate going to work on Monday morning.
Sure.
And
Waiting for the
that's
5
their
o'clock
life
whistle.
for the next 5 days. And then the time they look forward to the most is 5 o'clock on Friday, when they get to clock out and they have the next couple days. But I know people out there that the most stressful time for them is Sunday afternoon, because
Monday
all-
scaries, man.
exactly, because now they realize, oh shit, tomorrow I got to go back to work. And I would rather be one of those people that looks forward to going to work, but also looks forward to having the home life as well.
Man, you got to break it down day by day. You know what I mean? As far as that goes, sometimes Mondays do. Monday scaries are real sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously, I don't work on Monday, so it's like Tuesday scaries or for me.
Yeah.
But it's like, but it's what throughout the week what do you have going on, right? At work and at home. It's what you're saying there, Nate, is it's not just for Monday through Friday, if that's your schedule, it's just work. That's how I think your balance is off of keeping it fresh, or just enjoying the day to day. It's like, all right, so I'm not necessarily looking forward to just getting out of work, but I'm actually looking forward to what I'm doing after work at home or whatever it might be. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like all the days. You know what I mean? I definitely enjoy my home life more than my work life, and I think that's probably the appropriate way to shoot to enjoy your life, right? Is to enjoy your personal life, but the work side of it I look forward to as well. But there are times where I don't necessarily, like this week I only had the one day off because I worked for you on Sunday, which is fine, but it was like now everything kind of built up. I didn't have the decompression time built into the personal, enjoyment. It was just like, all right, now I'm just working this week. And then, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm doing the podcast. Thursday, we have something going on. Friday night, we have something going on. It's like Saturday, open to close. It's those weeks you have to take those. They're not the bad, but you take, the more relaxing weeks, more enjoyment, the vacations, the events, like you were talking about country concerts and the things you do, Tyler. It's like you have to find that balance of like, I'm good, but it's not the whole day. It's not the whole week. It's what can I do on if I'm free on a Thursday night? Like, am I just going to go home and just do nothing or whatever it might be and just go home?
Nah, I'm gonna go fucking chill with friends, fucking catch up, fucking talk about the NBA playoffs, or talk about whatever's going on in the personal life and shit like that. And
you have your decompression hobbies or the people that you want to be with, you look forward to being with, whether it be your significant other, if you have kids, whatever it might be. You enjoy that time away from work so that it then balances out that you also can enjoy your day at work.
I also think that if you have things at home taken care of, like if things are going well at home, and it's in a good place, it makes it easier to deal with work. It may not always be great, and you're always going to have those down days at your job or even your home life. But I think if you have the home life taken care of, it makes the job life a little easier.
Absolutely.
Because you're sitting there going, all right, I'm going to work. It may not necessarily be what I want to do or what I'm looking forward to doing, but I don't have to be at work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, but I think sometimes it changes that mindset to where it can make you enjoy the work life as well. Just because then because sometimes having to go away to work, you're like, all right, when I get done with that, I get to go back home. Things are great at home.
Absolutely.
So you're not necessarily under that same stress of going to work because you're like, I got to go to work for 9 hours. After that, I'm back home. Like it makes it a little easier to tolerate if things aren't necessarily the greatest. But if you can be in a position where you enjoy what you do at home and you enjoy what you do at work, it makes you enjoy every aspect of the day as it changes.
Sure. As we round out part 2, what do you guys think about that? Mike, you seem like you've been listening intently and shaking your head, nodding your head. You're rolling with the comments that Nate is talking
I threw
about.
a lot out there because I've been quiet for a while.
That's good. No, it's good.
Honestly,
if
it should be.
Like if I decide to open up about this, it was a bad time to say rounding it up, because if I go in that rabbit hole, it's going to open up a whole.
All right, no rabbit holes here, but just
Nah, I've never really understood the whole, like, oh darn, it's Monday, thank God it's Friday. I've never understood that.
Probably good thing
you're a workaholic then.
No, it's not even about a work. Like, maybe it's just a level of gratitude I have. Like, I have a job, and like every job I've ever had, when I look back now, I probably had more jobs you could probably think of. And there's jobs I've had for 2 weeks. There's jobs I've had for a couple of months. I mean, where I'm at now, I've been here for 3 years. Every job I've ever had, there's always something to learn, some way. If you choose to look at what are the opportunities that I have to learn something or to improve myself? Even if you're at if you're at a point where like, I know I'm not going to grow anymore, but can you grow yourself? Every interaction, every day is an opportunity to try to get better. And it's the attitude that you have going into it. Even if, and this is actually one of the things I used to like consult with when it comes to hiring teams of people, and especially in the fitness industry. Like I used to tell people right up front, because this is probably not going to be your forever job. Like going into it, I assume, like, especially for personal trainers, like, and I used to manage personal training teams, it's more than likely this is not going to be your forever home, right? But at least if you give 110% while you're here, you're not only going to give 110% for the company, but you're going to do it for yourself. Because if your goal is to become better as an individual down the road, no matter what you're doing, give 110% for yourself. Regardless if this is the place you want to be at forever, or you want to be here for a month, a year, whatever it may be, just give 110%, but do it for you. Because when you let the nuances and the annoyances get to you, like, it just makes it harder for you to grow, to become better later. And like, that's the mindset that's the mindset that I've always had. And it's just, that's why when it comes to that portion, it's never made sense to me. And the average person, a lot of people think like that, but I also think it's a choice. One of my biggest beliefs in life is, like, if you're ever in a position like you don't like your job or you don't like your home life, no one's got a gun to your head that you can't change it. What I think people lack is the courage to do what in their heart they know what to do. More people are worried about it's the consequences to making a change is what holds people back and keeps people stuck in that position. Like, let's just say you're in a relationship that, you don't want to be in, but you feel stuck. Well, you can change it, but the consequences of changing that are what you don't want to deal with. So you stick in something else. So you have a choice. You're just not willing to pay the price, whether it's a good price or a bad price, to make that change. Everyone has the ability to do that, whether it's a job, relationship, life circumstance. You can literally go up and go, you know what? Completely changing my life. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. It sucks in the short term, but in the long term, are you going to be happier?
Well, and to kind of include what Nate was saying there, is what he said is that you have a conversation too. You actually address what you may or may not be 100% pleased with, right? There's some times where I think in the I'd say younger generations, but I mean, it's not necessarily that. It's as soon as something goes wrong, you
bail.
You bail.
Yeah.
You bail ship. You're just like, no, this isn't what I wanted.
Right.
The more you do that, you're never going to have what you want. So I think there's the other side of it, is that you're just looking for the quick fix or the next best thing. Nate brought up the fact that, you have a conversation, whether it be professionally or personally, you have a conversation, you express all of that stuff. And I love what he said is that, all of a sudden it turned out that the other party was already there, but no one made the first move. A lot of times I think professionally that can happen as well. Certain things you're not happy with. It's like, hey, I'm not happy with X, even professionally. And the powers that be, the person you're talking to, might be like, you know what? You're absolutely right. Let's do this. But if you don't have the conversation, keep jumping ship and all that stuff.
Yep. I've had that conversation before in professional, where I've gone up to my boss and been like, hey, I don't feel like I'm doing enough for the team, or I don't feel like
what can we do?
I don't feel like I'm being used to what I can do best. And they're like, oh, I was actually looking for someone who can take this on. I'm like, cool. I would absolutely love to do that. You've been wanting someone else to do that for months, and
but they didn't say that either.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, it's so hard to talk.
Of course not, because they're gonna think about the like in my position, like if I got tired of, that's a good point, Nate, by the way. Like if like someone came up to me and like, dude, you look fucking like drained.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I got fucking 7 states now that I cover or whatever, and no one's fucking asked me how I feel about it or whatever. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm like running with my head cut off or whatever. It would be nice if someone came into the company that would take, let's say 2 or 3 states off my fucking plate. I'd be able to work more efficiently. I'd be able to fucking keep my sanity and stuff like that. Like that's something that could happen in my position at some point, hopefully not anytime soon, but I still got my fucking 27-year-old mind and body going. So that's helping me. But at some point, I'm not going to want to have 7 states to fucking cover and travel between. on a regular fucking basis. I'm going to get tired of that. And I'm going to be like, yo, I need help. And then I hope the company at that point will be like, yeah, we can help you with that.
You got to ask for the help. And I will say, Hector actually mentioned it, the attaboys. Sometimes you guys, people talk about that from a professional standpoint.
Yeah.
But my God, it's so imperative.
Oh gosh.
No,
it's amazing
no,
what a
no.
little compliment can do.
Personally as well in your relationships.
Yeah.
The stagnant part of it, and that's where I was kind of asking, the balance there is that when you're stagnant at work, you're stagnant at your personal life, and you're looking for the attaboy. When was the last time you gave an attaboy or a thank you or a comment about how you're happy with things at work or at home? That would be my closing remark there, is that a lot of the times, unfortunately, communication is not the easiest. Even the people that you trust the most at work, and obviously, hopefully, the people you trust at home, it's sometimes you have to say the first thank you, or you have to give the first compliment, or you have to do all that stuff. And sometimes, especially at work, it's easier to talk about. You say, hey, thanks for the opportunity. Hey, thanks for, I had a great thing, or all that stuff. Not looking for the attaboy necessarily, but you communicate that, all of a sudden compliments come rushing back in. But there's always this stalemate a lot of times, I think, that in the professional world, and unfortunately in the personal world, is that it's status quo. You know what I mean? It's the expected. You're doing your expected part. You're doing that. The only time you bring something up or raise your voice, or not raise your voice, but like raise a point. Concern is when things aren't being met. But when things are being met, it's just like fucking Yelp. You know what I mean? The only reviews most of the time are negative ones, right? Because it's like, yeah, I went in there and I bought what I wanted to buy. No, it's great, but you don't tell anyone unless someone asks you, right? They start the dialogue. So when you start the dialogue, when things are good, personally, especially, and also professionally now, that's when the dialogue happens. Now everyone's having a good time.
Right.
Hey, oh man, they actually appreciate that. Your employer, hears that you appreciate the opportunity. Your partner or your kids or whatever, you're saying the attaboys first.
Right.
And that's all it takes.
Right.
That's literally all it takes, is that now all of a sudden everyone's like, you know what? No, I'm actually enjoying this too. We are having a good time in life. Holy shit. You know what I mean? Like we were just going to day to day, that Monday through Friday, the weekends are here. That's great. But it's like, even the weekends, you don't appreciate, because now you're doing your weekends or mowing your lawn. All you're doing is cleaning the house. All you're doing is your chores. And it's like, you say, hey, thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
It's a world of difference.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And can I piggyback off that real quick?
No.
Okay.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in. No, go ahead, Mike.
No, like just kind of your point where you kind of brought up, the things that are expected almost kind of get overlooked, but whenever there's like a point of like criticism or something going wrong, it's always acknowledged.
Sure.
One of the things I've learned is like the efforts are what are more important to support than the accomplishments. Because if you think about it, and this is something, and I don't know if any of you guys were wrestlers at all, but like that's one of the biggest sports in the world where more people quit within the first few months or a year than any other sport. And one of the things I found through my years of coaching is the ones who have been successful are the ones that you give them praise for the efforts, because effort is the fuel that keeps you going forever. If all you care about is the accolades and the accomplishments, whenever you don't reach something, it makes you feel like all the hard work that you put in means nothing.
Absolutely.
Right. So always, even if someone's falling flat on their face time and time again, but they're trying their hardest, like that's what you have to acknowledge more than the win. And it feels better in those moments than the wins. And the more you give affirmations to those things, that's the fuel that's going to keep them. So when challenges do come up, they know their efforts mean something, because everybody's timeline, no matter what it is, if it's a sport, if it's a job, whatever it is, everyone's going to have a growth. Their growth, the timeline of their growth is going to be different for everyone. Everyone's circumstances, the way they learn is going to be different. And as long as you can support them trying, they'll never stop trying. And eventually they're going to get there. It's like my absolute favorite analogy, and I use this for everything, is like, imagine you have a football field. I don't know if you've ever seen this before. There's a video of it, and it's the best example. They put 10 kids on a football field. They all started at the touchdown, one end zone, and their goal is to sprint to the other end zone, right? And they set, and this is like in an athletic analogy, but they start everyone on the touch of one end zone, and it says, all right, all of you are going to start right here. Any of you that have great genetics and are already in better shape, go to the 10-yard line. If you have great genetics and you have great supportive family life and great parents, you start and you have both of those, you all start at the 20-yard line. If you have both of those things, plus you have great nutrition, great everything else, you're going to start in the 40-yard line. And then everyone starts and goes, everyone go and sprint to the end zone. And eventually everybody gets there, but who gets there first doesn't matter. What's the goal? To get to the end zone or to be first, right? So everyone's going to start, everyone's circumstances and where they're at is going to be different, but the goal is to get to the end zone. You want to support everyone, no matter where they're at, and making sure that they have the effort to get all the way to the end, no matter where you're at, who you are.
No, I like that a lot.
So like that's always been one of my favorite things. And like, and I 100% agree. It's not about what's expected, because like there's nothing worse when you know you're trying your hardest at something and no one really cares, as long all they care about is when you win. Like, what are your efforts even going toward? Then you're more worried about trying to get to the expectation, and it drains you. But if someone's supporting your efforts, like I see that you're trying, like you're really doing a hard time, like I know you're struggling right now. For example, like my company, right? Mm-hmm. Our whole entire company took a major hit from every election year. It's always hard in my industry. So like our sales were all down, but when our company did, they noticed how much we're on the road, how much we're visiting all of our end users, knowing that we're not really going to get much from it, but we're maintaining those relationships when the time does come. Like they did a really great job of saying, hey, we're all down right now, but we see how hard all of you guys are trying. We really appreciate you guys are really killing it. Like that made everyone feel great. That's one of the reasons I love my company, is because even when things are down, they see and they acknowledge the efforts. And that gives us the fuel to go, what we're doing means something. Even though the numbers may not necessarily be there, our efforts mean something. And I think that goes both ways, from both professional and personal lives too. The people you're surrounding with, do they care about, like can they see that you're actually trying to do things, even though if you don't do things right? Like, for example, let's say like relationships, right? Let's just say your spouse or significant other, like they want you to go do something and you don't do it the right way. Do you get criticized, or at least acknowledge that you tried? And even if they want to do it their way afterwards, like, do they at least acknowledge the fact that you tried? Do they support you that you're actually trying? Like, that's super important.
I agree.
Those are relationships and friendships, and anyone you're surrounding yourself with, it's the efforts that matter.
Yeah, if you're intense there and if you're struggling, that's when the attaboy is not always the accolades like you were talking about, but you're trying. To a certain point, if it doesn't work out professionally, personally,
right, that's
fine. But when you're struggling, or your partner or your employee is struggling, it's that communication. All right, so this is what's working. I see you're trying, and it's having those tough conversations. And I think that's a great place to end this conversation, Mike. I think that was a great example, because it's always about the effort. It doesn't always work, right? You can be the slowest kid on the team. It's like, what, football, whatever, not the best fit. Didn't work out. Acknowledge that at some point. That's okay. But what did we learn? How can you apply this elsewhere? Another company, another relationship, whatever it might be. But eventually you're going to get it. Yeah. And a lot of times, if you just rest on your accolades and you rest on your laurels and all that stuff, that's where you get lazy. And it's the flip side of that, is that all of a sudden you're getting beat out by someone else. And I think that's something that I love what you said right there, is that it is absolutely, if there's the communication and the appreciation for the effort, now you're getting somewhere, and hopefully it'll get you to where you want to be.
You can ask Shador Sanders that question.
I was trying to end the podcast. So Shador Sanders, you want to talk about that?
Nope.
Guys, happy Whiskey Wednesday.
Your glass is empty.
I got a tiny little bit left.
There's a lot of empty glasses. They're almost empty.
Besides, the bottle's empty anyway, so.
We'll raise them instead of cheers them. Cheersing the empty glasses are bad luck. So, guys, happy Whiskey Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for doing the 2 different parts here, and hopefully we'll have some good sound bites for you guys. And we will post when we're going to do another one. It won't be next week, but we will have another podcast probably in 2 weeks. And Tyler, thank you very much for coming on. Thanks for getting Hector on. Mike, thanks for being here. Thanks for the cigars, both Tyler and Mike.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. And thank
Absolutely.
you, Mike, for the Chicago. That was a pleasant surprise. And be on the lookout for the new releases for Espinosa this year. And keep smoking Espinosa.
Espinosa every day.
For life.
Hashtag Espinosa every day.
Pound sound. Jesus. Guys, have a good week.
Pound sign.